My presentation is about how non-native English-speaking international students socialize academically into higher education in a non-English-speaking society like Korea. It's based on my larger project on how different policies on internationalization are perceived and practiced by different stakeholders, like professors, local students, international students, policymakers, and staff members. And among the stakeholders, I chose this group because their number has greatly increased over the past two decades, mostly because of the global competition in the higher education market and, of course, in Korea. They are now significant members of Asian higher education institutions. However, there is still a lack of research on this group, which was a major motivator for me to conduct this research. I've been with Ulsan National Institute of Science and Technology located in Ulsan, South Korea, a little more than 10 years now. My major research fields include language policy, language socialization, and intercultural communication, and recently language and identity. This trend of globalization is quite visual worldwide, and it has quickly spread to non-English speaking higher education, which has continuously come across the dual challenges like establishing their internationality and at the same time securing financial stability faced with the decreasing number of local students. Like many other Asian countries, internationalization in Korean universities has been driven top-down by the Korean government's initiatives like study Korea projects and the advancement plan for promoting excellent foreign investors. Boosted by these projects, Korean universities have rigorously recruited students from abroad, changing their overall student populations. And according to recent statistical reports, there was a 700% growth in the international population over the 10-year span between 2003 and 2012. And as of 2016, there were over 100,000 registered international students on campus. Previous studies on international students have focused on the degree of their satisfaction and adaptation to English-speaking higher education institutions. Also problematic should be the narrow foci of the research on internationalization in non-English speaking countries. They have focused mainly on the perspectives of local stakeholders like Korean students, host country students, or some specific nationality of international students like Chinese international students. Little is known about multinational international students' adjustment to a non-English higher education context. Especially their affective, emotional reactions to the learning context and local cultural norms have not received much attention in the literature. This imbalance in the foci of research will trigger problems in understanding international students' adjustment and may ultimately affect the sustainability of different policies related to the internationalization of higher education. With this need for research, I conducted the study with these three research questions. I first asked about the factors involved in international students' academic socialization to a Korean engineering university. Then I investigated about their perceptions of these factors. The last research question was about the relationships between these factors. I reviewed previous research on several areas like internationalization of higher education, international students' academic socialization, EMI policy, and intercultural sensitivity. First of all, researchers have identified challenges in internationalization of higher education and frequently questions the validity of EMI because of the ineffective delivery of course content and a lack of evidence for the improvement of English language proficiency. In a study that I conducted with my colleagues, we investigated local and international students' perceptions of EMI and found that non-native English-speaking international students displayed a much greater sense of English use for international communication, like English as a lingua franca, than local students. And this difference formed students' negative attitudes towards each other's English uses. And about the rules of English and the local language, the knowledge of the local language has been constantly highlighted. For example, Chiang 2009 claimed that an optimal level of English proficiency is officially required for the international students' academic achievement. However, it is equally important to acquire the knowledge of the local language for their social interaction. Another major topic related to this research is international students' intercultural adaptation. One of the interesting and important findings here is that their knowledge of host cultures and cultural sensitivity have specific contribution to their academic achievement beyond adaptation. And McClure, 2007, among those, examined international students' experiences and expectation of the local culture of Singapore. Their experiences were built on previous educational and cultural expectations, and differences in those expectations between the host cultures and their cultural origin frequently created frustration during their adjustment, particularly in the first year after college. What these studies highlight is that the adjustment is characterized by continuous interaction with the host and the other international cultures. Through these interactions, they can build, rebuild fluid, complex, and dynamic relationships with different cultures. So it's not just general knowledge of the cultures, but also their emotional reactions to these differences that are pervasive and significant in those negotiated interactions. Their emotional experiences then should be a key aspect of their cultural adjustment. This affective dimension is highlighted in the notion of intercultural sensitivity. And according to Hammer and colleagues, 2003, intercultural sensitivity is crucial in developing intercultural communicative competence, which refers to the ability to think and act in interculturally appropriate ways. In the study of Korean college students' intercultural sensitivity and their perceptions of EMI, which I conducted with my colleagues, we found that Korean students' different perceptions of policy interplay with their sensitivity to the cultures of international students. Those relationships were significant in the sub-skills of attentiveness to and enjoyment of the cultures among the 5 sub-skills of intercultural sensitivity. Let me talk about the context of the research. The research site was UNIST. It's a national research university specialized in science and engineering, located in Ulsan, South Korea. This city houses world-renowned automotive, shipbuilding, petrochemical, and secondary sales industries. This table shows the number of students registered in the years of 2016 and 18. And as of 2018, there were a little more than 5,000 students enrolled in the university. There were 186 international students in degree programs in 2016, and then the number increased to 196 in 2018. They were mostly from several selected countries such as Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkey, Mongolia, or Vietnam. It was a part of very strategic recruitment of those from natural resource rich countries. The university has been implementing English officialization policy so that English is to be used in all areas, including education and administration. All classes are conducted in English, and the use of Korean in the classroom is banned. So all the class activities are administered through the medium of English. And currently, official school documents are drafted in English, and about 50% of all written emails are communicated in English. A total of 141 international students with 9 different nationalities participated in the quantitative survey. More than 25 students came from Kazakhstan, 36, Kyrgyzstan, 25, and Mongolia, 26. None of the participants were identified as native speakers of English or as being from countries with English as an official language. I had more male than female students and much more engineering students, 78.7%, than business management students. And at the time of the research, all the participants had taken classes with local students for more than one semester. I adopted a mixed method approach in this study. A 45-item questionnaire was constructed based on some of the previous literature. Each item was presented on a 5-point Likert scale. Intercultural sensitivity had 5 subscales following these 2 studies: interaction engagement, respect for cultures, interaction confidence, interaction enjoyment, and interaction attentiveness. Qualitative interviews were conducted right after the qualitative data were collected. In a semi-structured interview, the 18 interviewees expanded and developed their responses to each question. I first identified the factors significant to the international students' academic socialization to this Korean engineering university. The factor analysis extracted 10 factors out of a total of 36 items in the survey. This includes 5 subscales of intercultural sensitivity. This 10-factor solution accounted for about 64% of the total variance. For the second research question, I ran descriptive statistics about how the participants perceived those 10 factors. The results showed that the means were above the mid score of 3. Their perceived level of English proficiency and need to learn the Korean language were high, as shown in the scores of 444 and 452, respectively. And social interaction was also much needed with a score of 417. However, their experience with class-related interaction was not very high, very positive. Its score being only slightly above the mid score, 303. The results on intercultural sensitivity showed high scores on all the subscales of intercultural sensitivity, ranging from 356 for confidence, for 0 for respect. In the interviews, the participants' need for the Korean language was often expressed in relation to their life outside the campus and their career-related opportunities. The Korean language was described as a key to their future career in the local community. As a student from Mongolia said, the Korean language is the most important thing for us to be successful in everything, to have a better life. Once you are out of campus, to go shopping or everything, especially to get internship later, we really need Korean. We lose so many opportunities because of the language problem. Class-related interaction frequently brought up difficulties. Multiple interviewees noted that some Korean professors and TAs used the local language in their lectures. Also problematic was the Korean students were often reluctant to speak English. This interviewee highlighted this difficulty with local language uses in a classroom. He said the university says this is a global campus and has 100% English lectures, but TAs use Korean. I really hated it when TAs spoke Korean in classroom. I had to drop a course because I was the only foreigner in the classroom. I felt uncomfortable. The professor was speaking English only because of me. The last research question was about the relationships between those factors. In other words, the question was about how these factors would be interrelated with each other for the participants' academic socialization. The most noteworthy from the quantitative part of the study were the statistically significant correlations between the 5 subscales of intercultural sensitivity and the rest of the factors. For example, the participants' experiences of classroom interaction with the local students, class-related interaction in other words, was linked closely to the extent to which they engaged in the local cultural norms of interaction. In other words, intercultural sensitivity, engagement. Their need for Korean and sense of membership were significantly related to the extent to which they attended to certain cultural norms brought by their Korean classmates, Korean peers. In other words, intercultural sensitivity, attentiveness. One of the striking findings is the negative correlation between intercultural sensitivity and the need for interaction with locals, including the Korean students. This finding may be contradictory to what is normally presumed about these two factors, and therefore reveals interesting characteristics in the relationship. This was also found in the interview. For example, this student from Mongolia talked about his club activity experiences. He said Korean students, practice a lot. It's a club activity, but even though they do it as a hobby, they take it so seriously. I was in the basketball club. I've always felt like I would get a grade on playing it. I got stressed out because of my hobby after all. An explanation for this negative relationship is the participants' lack of a firm understanding of the local cultural norms. Even those with sufficient experience with EMI found that participation in club activity was a problem because of some of the local constraints in the participation. Since the meaning of the constraints, like practices for upcoming college tournaments or time constraints, were not jointly constructed, their participation was frequently limited or denied. The participants' lack of cultural knowledge and politeness was also a problem. A frequently noted cultural norm was the age factor, which was highlighted as a point of difference. In this interview excerpt, the student explains why she has not attempted to join club activities. She said, I don't really understand the whole age-related things between Korean students. When somebody do something wrong, freshmen and sophomores don't really point it out. Her interpretation here is misguided, which I will discuss in the next slide. These results highlight several points for discussion. First of all, as shown in the significant interplay between the intercultural sensitivity-related factors and the other factors, the English-mediated classroom is a primary site for international students' interactional experiences with local students and professors. It is critical to understand the classroom is not only an academic context, but also a space in which the participants directly encounter specific local cultural practices and develop their own intercultural stances. It is intriguing that the participants' affective emotional reactions to intercultural encounters would not correspond to their perceived need for social interaction with Koreans. Possible reasons: not enough information on the local culture, like club communities. The other commonly noted local cultural norm was the age factor. However, their interpretation was based on insufficient knowledge of the roles of age in forming politeness within the local students' interactional framework. Age is one of the cultural norms significant in many Asian societies, including Korea. The pragmatics of the cultural norm may not always be fixed in a hierarchy, but relative to the relationships between interactants. This kind of knowledge was neither properly instructed nor available in their limited social interactions. These discussions of the findings redirect the focus of the current state of internationalization of Korean higher education towards a balance between locality and internationality. Institutional support should include programs to educate students in the pragmatics of the local language and culture. These efforts will not only serve international students' socialization, but also cultivate global competence in the local communities. There are some remaining questions, like what about the native English-speaking international students and effects of participants' English and Korean proficiency on the relationships between the factors in the academic socialization of international students may be addressed in the future studies. This study has been published in Journal of Further and Higher Education this year, so if you're interested, the full article is available on the journal's website. I welcome your questions in any form of communication, and this is my email. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.